inspire, and make you think. The future is now. Topics and music that affect your life from Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome live from Hollywood once again. Lori Schwartz here with Tech Trends Impacting Your Business. Post the Consumer Electronics Show, January, I have my yearly bronchitis, which I'm at the end of. So if I sound a little Lauren Bacall, that's just science, really. It's science and drugs and all sorts of fun things. Usually that show just knocks me out. But today we have a very exciting show. We have one of my favorite people in the world who actually inspired me to start doing this radio show, and that is Arthur Greenwald of Greenwald Media, who I'm calling the Digital Curmudgeon. Oh my God, the women are going nuts.
As well they should.
So Arthur is a well-known media pundit. He's a writer, a producer, often doing his own broadcasts from different industry events, helps reporters, journalists, any industry organization who's doing anything in this space you've actually worked with. And so I thought it would be fitting right after the Consumer Electronics Show to get your spin on what's happening in the media industry. And one thing to know about Arthur is he suffers no fools. And he'll let you know that. And we have his special bullshit meter today. Oh, okay. Let's hear what your bullshit meter. All right, there we go. Okay. So we're going to get into a little bit about some of the trends happening in digital media and really how Arthur sees it as, unlike many of my guests who are so pro-digital and who are diving deep into this business, you have a much more landed and grounded perspective, as some may say.
Well, yeah, we were arguing about what to call me, and I went with Digital Curmudgeon because I think to really understand what's going on, you have to have an appreciation for both the old and the new. And what drives me crazy about digital is that there are so many digital cheerleaders out there where every new development is the greatest new thing. And common sense will tell you that most of the innovations and new products fail. And some of them never see from CES, as you well know, having just led so many tours that led to your bronchitis.
Yes.
Many of those products that they're so enthusiastic about in the press releases are not actually released. They never actually make it to market.
Right. So your perspective is always more landed. So give us some background on you, because you've had a very interesting, varied career all around, guiding people. So tell us your story. Tell us your story, Arthur Greenwald.
Yes, said the expert from Storytech.
By the way, just as a side note, just keep this in the back of your head, that Arthur is this kind of prosumer baker. He'll show up at any meeting we have with this professionally looking baked good, wrapped professionally, and he'll give it to me, and I'll say, no, I can't. I'm on my low-carb diet, and then I'll eat it. But you're an insane baker.
Well, that's because the ones that get burnt and look terrible, I leave back in the kitchen. And
okay.
I select the good one for you.
Oh,
Laurie.
I really appreciate it. Okay.
You got it.
So the baker and Digital Curmudgeon, tell us about your background.
Well, I started out, actually while still in college, with Mr. Rogers, of all people. Started out in children's television. Originally thought I'd be a child therapist, but went into television, which I had always loved, studying.
So you worked with Fred Rogers?
I did indeed, and he was my mentor in many ways. In the last few years of college, I would go back and forth between college and my hometown of Pittsburgh, where he was based. And we developed the first set of videos to prepare kids for hospitalization and surgery.
Wow.
And that grew into this was when the only way to play a tape back was a giant tape deck that weighed more than a coffee table.
And you really had to cut in a certain way because it was linear.
Oh, absolutely.
You couldn't move digital. Nothing was digital yet.
Yeah. Dating myself to people who know the technology, that was edited on the first nonlinear editor, the CMX machine, which was not really nonlinear. It spun the 2-inch reels of tape and queued them up.
You had duplicate copies of the same content, so you could lay stuff off.
That's right. I mean, here's one way to think about it. The cameras that we were able to use at that time period were $70,000 in those days, and the editing capability was not as good as any iPhone today.
Right, right.
So in other words, any iPhone basically gives you the camera and iMovie for
Right,
free.
right.
That's better than cost $500,000 worth of stuff back in the late 70s,
television was
early
still
80s.
made.
That's right.
And so Fred, just really quickly, because I can't help it because you have so many great stories. Fred Rogers, like, what was he like?
Well, he was just a great guy. He was extremely smart, funny, extremely dedicated to the welfare of children, no surprise, and very thoughtful.
Did he know he was launching, a revolution in children's television? Like, did he know what he was doing?
You have to remember, he started when I was a child in local television and invented public television at WQED in Pittsburgh, the first commercial community-sponsored non-commercial station. And he created the children's show there, not knowing that that's what he would get into. But he took it very seriously, studied child development as part of his ministry. He became a Presbyterian minister. And Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood just grew and grew and grew. First, it was literally the tapes were shipped around the country, and then PBS launched in the early 70s, and that was one of the original programs on it, and on and on. But there was not a grand plan. It's just it gradually rolled out. And today, the Fred Rogers Company, which has Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood and animation and is creating new programs, the old episodes are on Amazon, and some of them are cut into mini segments, while all sorts of new work and animation is still being done. And
you know that my 5-year-old is a huge Daniel Tiger fan. She's starting to wane off it a little bit, but she used to sing the Daniel Tiger songs, which were all about, like, brush your teeth and try a new food and, if you have to go to the bathroom, whatever. She would actually sing those songs when she was doing it, so it worked.
So that tradition, of course, the original songs.
I love those shows.
Fred would write the songs for what were originally puppet characters and are now animation. And that was the first writing I did, was for Daniel Tiger, the puppet.
Wow, that's so cool, Arthur. That's really cool. Well, I did see a picture on your Facebook that looked like more of like a 60s happening than you guys putting on the show. But you do recognize Fred Rogers in the picture. He's the only one with like short, neat hair, and the rest of you are like total hippies, long hair, and the collars and the jeans.
What was fun about that particular picture was the one of the stage crew members, and our time there overlapped for exactly 10 days, was Michael Keaton, who just won the Golden Globe and just got an Oscar nomination for Birdman.
He'll win too.
I hope so.
Yeah. Well, that's wild. So
Good Pittsburgh boy.
So you knew Michael Keaton for 10 days.
That's right. Well, I had the chance to work with him a couple of times on some Mr. Rogers projects after that, but I would not pretend that we're close. He's just someone I admire.
No, that's cool. At least you're admitting that you're not close to him, as opposed to the normal Hollywood thing where you say, I worked with him.
That's part of the curmudgeon thing, is honesty.
That's right. We like that. So, all right, so you get your start, in Pittsburgh, working on television with the amazing Fred Rogers, and then what was next for you? Well,
I've quickly learned that working for a nonprofit public television company meant that you ran out of grant money, and there were these periods of unemployment until you could write a new proposal. So I went over and started working on one of the first magazine shows. In many markets, it was called PM Magazine. We had the original evening magazine as part of Westinghouse Broadcasting, KDKA in Pittsburgh, and I was there for about 10 years. Went from that to local children's television, which we syndicated nationally out of Pittsburgh in collaboration with the other stations. Produced some, I'm proud to say, Emmy-winning specials for kids at that time. And then moved into marketing and promotion. So I sort of wore both hats. I would make programs and also promote other programs. And by the time I left, I had a nice portfolio to start my own production company.
In Los Angeles? Is that when you moved out to L.A.?
No, I was still in Pittsburgh, moved to Boston, where there was more going on, and then moved to Los Angeles when
winter hit and you just couldn't take it anymore.
Actually, it's one of the reasons I'm no longer married, is that I had a knack for actually coming to Los Angeles while the snowstorms were hitting. But
I didn't realize you were married before.
Oh yeah, yeah, and to someone who's also in the business. But to make a long story short, came out here for an unusual opportunity, and this is one of the reasons I come by my curmudgeonliness about digital very honestly. It was Americast, the partnership between what was then 5 phone companies and Disney to put the cable industry out of business with fiber optic programming. You may have noticed this did not occur, but they burnt up $1 billion finding out that wasn't happening.
That launched your viewpoint on the world that this stuff may or may not happen. Let's not put all of our eggs in that basket.
That's right, but it was a real education about learning what does and doesn't work and some ways to figure that out.
Got it. And what would you say, do you have any general trends in your head about what does work in this world?
Well, like the old saying from Watergate, follow the money.
Is that what they said?
Yeah.
I thought they said follow Deep Throat. They said follow the money.
Well, Deep Throat was the one who said follow the money. He wouldn't just tell them who was responsible. He made them do some legwork. What's important is, and we've had this conversation before, is that there's so much exciting potential in the digital technology, and certainly we have seen new innovations. We've seen new ways to distribute and to produce and conceive of programs, but there's a big difference between potential and exciting new breakthroughs and an established business that can support the entertainment economy. I mean, if you literally take the 10,000-foot high view of Southern California and you look at all those communities down there, they are supported by people making a living wage, turning out massive amounts of entertainment. It is still one of the largest employers in Southern California. So I always think the metric we need to be focused on is not
who's making a living.
Right, not Facebook likes or what's trending on Twitter, but who's able to make a mortgage payment. And who's paying that? So I don't want to hear about YouTube stars and their millions of hits. They don't employ very many people. And sadly, in the digital industry, a great many projects are made way below the wages and budgets of normal programs.
What if the democratization, though, of production, of the future of production, is much less than it used to be? Is that a bad thing? Is it just going to change how many people do get employed by the business? I mean, is that okay?
Well, there's just a lot of unknowns, and these are all great questions. What's dangerous is that there are so many self-appointed digital gurus out there that are proclaiming them as answers, and it's way too early to tell.
So are you bullshit metering all over the place?
Well, yeah, you can't help it. And, we have people that we like and admire who we like to listen to and talk to about this. One of the things I like so much about what you and your partner Brian do is that you're quite careful to distinguish between what's real and what's maybe. And that's unusual in our business.
Yeah, I don't even realize we're doing that. I know that we talk about trends as opposed to, what's really going to happen. But now you have... a lot
of people are out there saying, for example, that the broadcast networks and the studios are dinosaurs. They're going out of business. All they're doing is trying to preserve their old antique business.
Yes.
That's crazy talk. Or to put it another way.
Well, let's talk about that. So you have Hulu, you have Crackle, you have Amazon, you have Netflix winning awards, apparently making good money.
That's the thing. We don't know.
Well, we don't know because Netflix never really reports, right? But it seems like they're doing well, but that's the point. It seems like it's so. What's going on? And then at CES, at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas, there were a lot of announcements from major broadcast players. You could call them the cable networks or the satellite networks, who are unbundling, who are offering up services that you could buy individually. So Dish announces Sling TV, where you could buy ESPN on its own. So I don't have to now subscribe to this, one whole service. I can now just buy a channel. And so I'm sure we're going to hear a lot more announcements about unbundling of these, what we might call IP networks.
That's right.
Internet protocol networks. So what's your viewpoint on that? That seems pretty interesting and real.
Yeah, and it's exciting in terms of the opportunities and choices for the consumer. But there's a lot of unknowns there, once again. Number one, if a lot of people did that, there's not enough bandwidth in the world to support all those streams.
So if every single current network went pure IP or IP,
Well,
it would never happen.
it couldn't happen right
Right.
now. And right now, it literally cannot happen until the thing that President Obama just hinted at happens, and they build out fiber optic internet universally, which is what Al Gore was proposing in the first place. If they had
Right.
listened
See,
to him.
I feel like he's always bad-mouthed, but
Right.
I think that he's a genius man.
Well, yeah, it's really
He saw it.
He never said that he invented the internet.
Right.
But he did invent it as a political issue, and he did try to create what was then called the information superhighway.
Right, right.
And if had it happened, we would be up there with South Korea and other places that don't have bandwidth problems.
Right, right. So he foretold where we should be going.
Yeah, but to answer your question, that's one limitation
Right.
on over-the-top
Right.
programming. Another is cost. Some of these deals sound great. Sure, yeah, I'll just pay for ESPN and nothing else if I'm a sports fan. But very few households, particularly with children, are just sports fans or just movie fans.
Right, right,
And
right.
if you look at it, what CBS, for example, I think is planning to charge $8 a month, or is now charging $8 a month.
Right, for their IP
That's right.
stream.
For their standalone over-the-top service, which duplicates their network service.
Yep.
And you use that as the baseline. Well, I don't know about you. I like Homeland. I like Scandal.
Yeah.
I like a bunch of
You
things.
like individual shows.
And I
yeah.
quickly would exceed my cable, or in my case, my AT&T bill,
Right.
by doing that a la carte.
Right, right, right. Well, I think it's going to be probably more of network than show, but it would be awesome if you could just pick the 20 shows you want to watch, and that's it.
Yeah, but
You know?
this raises another question. If we suddenly live in the world where that's how shows were being made,
Yeah.
how would you ever find out about them?
You mean who would advertise them and where? And,
Well,
and
what would it cost to advertise them?
Right.
What you're describing.
What would be the it wouldn't, maybe there could be the guide, which everyone keeps still throwing a lot of hope into. Maybe you turn on the TV and that EP, he's coming out with the meter.
Wait a minute.
Because everyone's tried to make the guide be the eyeball owner. But I still look in one room. I still go to TiVo and I say, TiVo, what do you have for me? And more, it just doesn't have a lot because I haven't programmed it. You know, so my husband and I end up, because we're Gen X, we end up watching a lot of repeats at night of the stuff that makes us happy. So we watch Star Trek because we're both Trekkies, and we watch Futurama. And there's a couple of other shows that around 10 o'clock when we're retiring and we want an hour or so of TV before we go to sleep, we watch reruns of shows from 10 years ago.
Right.
And then we'll separate in the earlier part of the evening for our gender-based shows. So he'll go into one room to watch Build It Bigger, Drill a Hole, Find Gold, Fish This Thing, Gigantic Thing, whatever. And then I'll be in the other room watching great written hour-long dramas, you know, and maybe some comedy. So I'll be Game of Thrones-ing it, and he'll be Build a Huge Freight Ship in it. Now, what's more interesting? Let me ask you. I think what I'm watching is more interesting. But so we'll do that, and then we'll come back together and turn on the TiVo. Okay. So curation-wise, we're still going into separate rooms.
Well, to cut to the chase,
Yes.
though, all of those shows you know about because they are on mainstream networks.
Well, and I make effort. I make effort.
Well, you're also in the business,
Right,
which we
right.
have to remember. Almost anyone who's ever sat at these microphones is disqualified from speaking as a consumer.
Right, right.
Because they do it for a living.
Right.
They're not
True.
a typical
True. Well, let me do
insight.
this.
Yeah, there you go. But what's
They need to be milked.
but it's supposed to be a bull, so good luck with that. But
I've been in that situation before.
see, what did W.C. Fields say? Sometimes you just have to take the bull by the tail and face the situation.
Yeah.
But with again, if you imagine a disaggregated universe where all of these shows are designed because they're data-driven, the way Netflix claimed
Yes.
they created House of Cards.
You don't believe that that's true?
Well, let's just pretend it is true. How do you create a business out of that? If I like House of Cards, maybe I'll like Scandal. But after a while, do I really want data, just like those annoying ads, that are
follow you
derived
for
from
the rest of-
Amazon?
Right.
they
follow
keep
yours.
pushing me the same thing.
Right, the retargeting. Yeah.
And what kind of inferences can you make from that data that help you create a hit show?
Right.
I think it's really important to listen to the real masters of studying audiences who are still with the broadcast networks. Dave Poltrak at CBS runs literally 365 days a year live human research at the MGM Grand Hotel in Las Vegas.
In Vegas. So he's studying what people do. But let me ask you this. Let me sidestep it. And I'm sure your finger's going to be on the cow. But what if we lived in this world where, say, a Anthony Zeiger, okay, who is Mr. CSI, owned his own data. So he had all the CSI loyalty information. He knew exactly who all those audiences were on all the different shows because he has this huge franchise. What if he owned that and he took that and for any show he launches again, he banged on that himself. And he didn't rely on a network. So it was Anthony Zeiger owning his IP and then messaging everyone who's ever raised their hand liking a show. What if that was the world we were in?
Well, that's great for Anthony Zeiger.
Yes.
And him and guys like Dick Wolf who do 5 versions of Law and Order.
Right.
That's a career.
Or Tim Krang or our good friend, not our good friend, I wish he was my good friend, J.J. Abrams,
yeah,
who I think I want to follow around on a pilgrimage.
But those last two that are interesting
J.J.
examples.
and Tim?
Yeah, Tim has not done the same show.
Right.
So the audience for Heroes did not follow him to the show he did with Kiefer Sutherland, whatever it was called.
Right.
It was a very different show to his credit. And J.J. Abrams, Alias, Lost, which he was only peripherally involved in. Fringe.
The greatest show ever.
Yes. And
now Star Trek.
And I love the Brad Robot brand.
Yeah.
And now he's doing the Star Trek movies, but he's also doing Person of Interest on CBS. Very different
And Star
show.
Wars, Star Trek to Star Wars.
Well,
I mean,
he himself
he's
is
a
great.
god.
Yes, but I'll bet if you say, here's the data from your audience, they'll say, yeah, very nice, put it over there while I do some real work.
Right. So you're saying that won't work if their flavor, if their IP is varied.
Well, if you have a real creative person, an Aaron Sorkin or David Milch, they don't give a damn about those sorts of numbers. That's that's to them like network notes. Yes, if it's illuminating and they can use
they
it,
just
great.
They just want to write great stuff and do what their vision says.
The point is, it's not really how creative breakthroughs are achieved.
Right, true. But if I'm a Sorkin fan, which I am,
me too,
I'm going to find whatever he does.
That's right.
And so I'm not going to care as much about the show as much as hearing that Sorkin
And I think
dialogue.
we can agree that
No.
your basic your basic premise is
not.
sound. What you're saying is ultimately right. If
Right.
I'm a Sorkin fan, granted that we know about Sorkin because of millions of dollars of promotion behind West Wing and his other projects.
Right.
But now that we know about him, we'll follow him. What's not certain is how you build that audience in the first place if the doomsayers are true or correct and the networks go away.
So will it be then a mixture like ABC Family is doing where you have built this fan base that loves Pretty Little Liars and Scandals and that sort of young adult teen audience, millennial audience. So you have them. So then you keep banging on them and you launch the Fosters and you keep banging on that group now, not based on the talent or the auteur, but based on the demographic, the theme, the data that says this age group right now loves, teen soap operas at night.
Absolutely, you're right. But again,
that's just one piece.
That is based on the overall tool of cross-promotion. You've got the eyeballs on the network,
Right.
and that's where you see
But
the
they've
promos
pushed
for the
them-
other shows.
They've pushed them down the funnel, though, right? So if they're further down the funnel, and now I have this hand raiser group from Pretty Little Liars, can't that be my audience now for everything I do in that age group?
If you have a vehicle for making them aware of them, of that show. If
Right.
each of them is a show on Amazon that you download and binge view,
Right.
unless Amazon and
Right, you're
Netflix
saying you
starts
need-
running promos,
You're
which
saying
I
you need
believe
the
they will.
You're saying you need the ABC Family machine.
You need the brand, you need the real estate. You need the place where the
Right.
promos run.
So the unbundling will be problematic from a discovery perspective.
And also from a budget perspective.
How will we afford it?
If every show carries the promotional costs of an independent film,
Right.
then television will become as risky as the independent
Right,
film business,
right.
which means a life of
So
poverty.
the cost of so the cost of getting the word out on shows is aggregated and borne by the network as a whole, as opposed to being each show having a marketing budget. Is that what you're saying? Or you're saying we need to think a little bit more realistically like that?
Well,
That
both-
Bravo's budget is for all Bravo shows, the Bravo brand, as well as all the lying, cheating wives of different cities.
Yes, it's the Bravo brand and the FX brand, which is more confusing because it's so many things, and USA Network and still attempts to be all things to all people.
Right.
But that said, the real question is, people talk about disruption as if it's a goal. Oh, I created a disruptive technology.
It's the new cool thing to say. All of a sudden, disruption is if you've disrupted something, you're cool.
Yes, but in fact, disruption is not an accomplishment. It's a symptom. It means you've done something wrong. The goal...
I'm dying because he just said
Next
something
week's host...
Yeah, that's right. All right, wait, let's talk about this because this is fascinating because everyone in my world on the sort of agency content side is trying to disrupt from a positive perspective because they've been told if you don't disrupt, someone else is going to disrupt you and your category. So you got to get in there and innovate. So are you saying they shouldn't be thinking like that?
No,
Mr. Curmudgeon?
Yes.
What are you saying, damn it?
I'm saying that, yes, if you have a technology that brings something new to the party, by all means, figure out how to exploit that. But that does not follow that you're throwing out what came before.
Right.
It means you're adding on to it and adapting. That's why I laugh when people say that CBS and NBC are going out of business. They are like the Borg. They're going to suck up all those new technologies.
We need to have a cow for the. This is the problem, by the way, of using your phones or your tablets unless you switch the power setting because they keep going off.
That's right.
So Arthur doesn't have his finger on the teat, if I may say,
As it were, yes.
regularly.
By the way, did you want a whole or 2%?
2%.
Okay.
Well, let's jump to our next segment and let's see what sound effect John is going to come up for this one. And this is what are the top tech trends that you think are really cool right now? Like, what do you think? And another animal metaphor.
From cows to horses.
From cows to horses. Very good. See, the man, it has been in broadcast. He can do his own Foley. And Foley as well, I think.
Yes.
So do you do any Sondheim or anything?
Hopefully not.
So what do you think is a new hot tech trend? Did you see anything at CES that really blew you away, or is there anything that you've seen over the last month or two that you're like, God, that's going to be hot? Or I think personally it's interesting because some of this is really, we're responding personally to how cool things are.
I have to say, I did not see anything coming out of CES this year that struck me as particularly hot or, pardon the expression, disruptive.
That's negative, Arthur.
No, but I saw lots of great refinements on existing products,
Okay, cool.
which in some ways is even better.
So what were some of the things that you saw refined that turned you on?
Well, I think it's obvious that everybody's stealing constructively from everybody else's interface.
Okay.
Look at the products that were debuted that are going to take advantage of Apple's CarPlay.
Okay.
And some of them are standalone products, so you can have a third-party Alpine or
and can you describe the interface for folks that haven't seen it yet?
Yeah, it's basically like the interface on your iPhone or iPad, translated to the car but simplified. It also will
It's beautiful.
Yes, it'll bring Siri into your car. And what's really cool about it is it literally ties to your phone so that you have your database traveling with you. And one of the things that all car owners can relate to is that if you buy an expensive car and you realize that you're essentially paying like $1,500 for the guidance system.
That sucks.
And then they want you to update the maps for $500 or something.
Every year, and they're antiquated, horrible systems. Because, for instance, if you suck in your phone
Right.
into the car's database, it does the fax number. It does like every single phone number on a person's name. So by the letter D, you've used up the library.
Right.
And it doesn't tell you which is the fax and the hard line and whatever. And so it's horrible. So I end up just using my phone.
We could spend literally the rest of the show
Talking about-
cataloging those deficiencies. But
Right.
that's exactly
But
right.
is that better than the Google Android system, you think?
I don't know. I mean, both, let's face it, both the Google Android system and the Apple CarPlay system are in their infancies. They just announced CarPlay. It's just being applied to actual cars.
And what about what Ford's doing, where they have their own developer network? I mean, do you see one of those winning, or do you?
I can speak selfishly. I'd rather have all my stuff on my iPhone and carry the data that I want the way I want to use it.
Right.
I mean, one of the things I have this argument with Wendy all the time is
Wendy, your mate,
my mate and the person who enhances my life in so
your
many
lover,
ways. Yes.
your fellow baker.
I'm just praying there are no sound effects that go with it.
Does Wendy bake with you?
She does not. Wendy cooks on rare occasions just to remind me that she's better at it than I am.
Is she a better cook than you are?
Ultimately, when she wants to be, absolutely she is.
So, like regular food, she's a better cook.
Oh, no, seriously, like, every once in a while I'll make something fancy and she'll compliment me on it. And then every once in a while she'll do Thanksgiving dinner and it's like Martha Stewart came to town.
Oh, right.
It's like perfect.
Because I don't mean to bang this on the head, but it fascinates me what a fabulous baker you are. I just want you to, I mean, it's just fascinating. All right, so
she's angling for pie.
Yeah, the pie is, no, I just started my food plan again.
We've defeated that before.
All right, so no, because I'm going to the Caribbean, man, and I'm going to feel good about that bathing suit in 2 months. So.
Okay.
All right, go ahead. So.
All right, well, where were we?
We were somewhere in North Hall studying at CES the cars.
Waves.
Yes.
Is the thing that Wendy and I disagree about. Waves is a terrific app. One of the things that's great is it's like the best possible use of crowdsourcing. It's not a matter of opinion.
Wait, describe what Waves is for
Waves
anyone
is like GPS as a standalone app that crowdsources the traffic information from all the other Waves users.
And Google bought it.
I believe they did.
And yeah, so it's integrated with Google Maps now.
That's right. But it's also available as a standalone app on
which
the
is
iPhone.
how I use it when you don't want to go on the 405, when you don't want to go on the major highways.
That's right.
But you want the secret sauce of really how do I get home?
Well, this really completes your previous thought. I have a Mazda 3 that I really enjoy. Guidance system is actually fairly well designed, but the traffic information that's supposed to be available and is mentioned specifically in the manual is actually non-existent. And I've taken this issue all the way up to the top of Mazda, and they basically say, oops, we meant to, but we couldn't.
But is it because, I think it's because they bake in these systems years ahead.
That's part of it.
And so they can't change the systems. And why should they even make the systems anymore when you can have CarPlay now?
Exactly why CarPlay and the Android equivalent exists.
Yeah.
However, to get back to Waves, it's a great standalone app. What's bad about it is it's a handheld device. It's not on your screen that you can glance at on the dashboard.
So have you, my brother's going to do this for me, but get me the arm that you just clip onto your fan and you put your iPhone in there?
I think if you had Waves on the cellular mini iPad mini, that's a big enough screen that you could look at that safely.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced that even with the suction cup mount that it's safe to look at an iPhone while you're driving.
With my big fat phone, you don't think so?
Well, I have the same one.
You do?
The 6 Plus.
We should see if they'll mate.
That may be how you get the iPhone 6.
Well, that's how you get a 12.
I see.
Sorry, I'm bringing it home today, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so you love the new interfaces with our OSs following us into the cars. What else did you see or are you experiencing that you're kind of turned on by? What are the refinements out there?
Well, a lot of products are being redesigned and relaunched for the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus that are video and audio add-ons that now use the Lightning plug instead of the former double duty for the headphone jack, which is kind of a clunky way to connect.
So you only have to plug in your Lightning.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I meant to bring this to show you, but IK Multimedia is a company that makes all sorts of accessories primarily for musicians, but they work well in many cases for video as well. They now have what they call the, I hope I get this right, the iRig Mic Field, Mic M-I-C, that is a little $99 microphone that plugs into the lightning plug. It's meant to record music, but if you're doing interviews or podcast interviews or anything else, it's
so
great.
Arthur is who I went to when I was doing some, journalism with my iPhone like 2 years ago at a conference, and I needed to record video and I needed to record audio semi-professionally, and I only had my phone, and so you kind of suited me up at the time.
Yeah.
So you're always kind of looking at technology that will help you leverage, equipment at a democratized level.
Right.
Again.
Although, just to share, the main rule of thumb is if you're loading up so many gadgets on your iPhone, you're probably better off with just going out and buying a video camera.
Right. Do you have a favorite camera now, independent on the iPhone, that you love?
I'm actually several years behind on the cameras. I'm tracking them. I was actually thinking about that because I haven't been asked to do a lot of video projects myself. I've been fortunate to have the crew to do that.
Right. So you haven't
so
had
many
to.
people are using RED cameras or SLRs that have fabulous video capability.
Right.
That's certainly one way to go. But again, the miniature consumer high def or even 4K cameras that are
I
now
know,
available
crazy.
are
The
quite amazing.
GoPros
And that was the other big trend that really has jumped up are the wearable cameras for consumers.
Right. I saw the one at the Vivitar booth, and then I also saw one at Casio.
Yeah.
Had a beautiful wearable camera that they're not selling in the U.S. because Casio is not known as a camera brand here, but it was detachable. Like, it was a little thing that you could actually just move around like this. For selfies and everything else. And,
Right.
and lots of selfie sticks at CES, like every form of selfie stick, which I don't think is as much fun. Was it you I was talking to about this, that the selfie sticks don't make selfies as much fun because then it's not like you're doing a selfie. Because the thing that's great about selfies is how awkward they are.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, that's interesting. That's probably true. That could be kill some of the fun of it. I've actually had a monopod, which is what selfie sticks used to be called, for years. And
Right.
I was actually just reorganizing my office and found all kinds of old gadgets. Let me know if you want one.
We can melt them down with all of my. I have a growing box of old stuff. I mean, our house is always, because of what my husband does too. It's just like equipment, graveyard.
Definitely. I have the Apple Museum in storage,
Yes.
public storage locker.
I think we all do.
I have every power book going back to the introduction of the thing.
What do you do with the old ones?
I'm
Besides
stupid.
make
I
fish
just
tanks?
never get around to selling them.
Yeah, but
And-
when they're still valuable. So, all right. So we have car stuff. We have some.
Oh,
of the
I also have
extensions.
2 Apple Newtons.
Well, those are worth something.
I should
Those
sell
are worth
those.
something. Well, what else? What else did you see that was a mind blow for you, or at least going back to landing services that you saw last year?
Well, obviously the drones are interesting, and they've matured and become operational and functional a lot faster.
Why are they so interesting? Is it? I read one article saying the reason people are so fascinated with drones is not only because of the privacy issues, because we love robotics, and flying together really capture our heart and minds in a way.
Yeah, I
What
think
is
there's
it?
something to that. The simpler explanation is they're great toys. The
Right.
end.
It's passion, right?
Yeah,
It's
but
fun.
But the number of people who are interested in drones who actually have a professional application for drones
Like our
is fairly
2% or something.
Well, it's, the big issue with like Amazon's vaunted attempts to deliver packages
Yes,
with drones
yes.
are not the 99% successful deliveries. It's the one that causes brain damage because
That's
it
right.
falls from 600 feet onto somebody's head.
My quick drone story is I bought one for my husband a year ago for one of our, whatever anniversaries or whatever, and he takes it out with his teenage daughter to the park literally within like 5 minutes of unwrapping it, and lets her have the controls, and she flies it into his Jeep and dents the Jeep and then busts the propellers, which you easily can get new ones for.
Right.
But it's that like easy to like kill that thing,
Well, I'm sure as they become more automated, they'll be easier to steer, and they'll have safeguards built into them.
And it's the Wi-Fi piece that's really cool, right? Like you can see what the drone is seeing on your phone now. You can manage it. And then Parrot was showing the famous like dances with drones, where they do. Now, how are they doing that? There's patterns on the floor, and you see these drones like dancing.
Well, it's essentially like live programming instructions by barcode, except the drone is set to read the pattern on the floor.
It's AR basically.
Yeah,
it's reading from through a camera. It's reading colors on the floor that are guiding.
But that's really a sort of a live performance of a drone ballet. It really doesn't have much to do with what the drone is supposedly for.
Right. It's just a great showstopper.
Right.
Like
well,
we
it's
always
like
stop
Dancing
there.
Waters, but with drones.
That's right. It's really cool. The other thing that we saw at the Consumer Electronics Show was just the explosion of virtual reality, going from being just let's watch these people fall off their chair. The cow's coming out.
Well, remember the big announcement that Fox is now going to get into VR.
So let's talk about VR for 1 second. So Samsung announces their program, their VR API, and then we have Oculus, which Facebook bought. Then I also learned about 3D Head, which was a gaming company, but now they're actually claiming to be the Oculus killer because their like goggles and their whole platform can do 2D and 3D without glasses, and so they literally advertise. This is what I thought was fascinating, that within 1 year of Oculus sort of announcing itself, there's already other companies advertising that they're the Oculus killer, and I think that's like the fastest growth in a category I've ever seen. His fingers are going to the cow.
Okay, but this is triple BS.
Okay, go, do it.
Okay, ready?
Oh, they're mad.
Yeah.
And they're kicking up a storm.
Here's the thing. Have you looked at this stuff? Have you put one of those things in your head?
Yeah, they give you a headache.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how good is the 3D effect in terms of, would you confuse it with looking around in normal life?
No, but I don't think it's meant to facilitate like this is your real life. It's an experience.
Suffice it to say, these things are a gimmick.
No, they're a gimmick, but I think there's more to VR than a lot of the other gimmicks that flew through CES in previous years, like 3D TV, say, or Ultra HD, or some of these things that everyone shows 1 year.
Well,
I think it's going to be a real content play here.
See, I agree with you. There could be something to it, particularly for gamers.
Right.
If you're creating
But
a self-contained
what about music
universe.
concerts? What about like what Paul McCartney did with that company John?
Right.
And he recorded a 360 concert. And so you could actually buy a ticket sitting next to him on the piano. Now, I don't know that I would want that because I think he's probably a lot older than I actually realize. And it's kind of sad. I mean, cool. But, for those of us who are close to his age.
Well, but let's just, to put it nicely,
yes,
that's unknown.
But it's interesting.
I can tell you
right?
that I prefer to see movies in the theater that are not 3D.
Right.
Generally speaking. I don't think the effect ever really adds very much to it.
Right.
And it's usually grafted onto the scene.
Right. So, and by the way, this is one of the big things that we talk about at Storytech all the time. Don't shove the tech trend on at the end of your storytelling, but integrate it because it's a creative tool.
Many people point to Avatar as the best example of that. But even in Avatar, when you were going through the jungle and the vines were going in front of your face, it was like, knock it off already.
Well, right. It was more to see the world. But I think VR could be a great educational tool. Obviously, augmented reality / VR is being used in operations and in healthcare.
I think all of those things will be, first of all, the technology and the experience will get better, and that's encouraging.
Are you real right now?
I am not. I'm a hologram.
That's what I thought.
I'm also doing the baking show in another studio.
That's right. Well, all right. So besides VR, was there anything else that you just want to call complete bullshit on?
No, but see, that's the thing. I'm not calling complete bullshit on these things because I don't believe that. I think there's a there. We just don't know what it is.
And you don't want everyone sinking everything into it.
But it's really the way we talk about tech in general that is the root problem here.
Okay.
It's driven by social media. It's the same thing that causes journalism to devolve into clickbait, where everything is the latest, greatest, so you won't believe what happens
You want
next.
people to be more measured about how they communicate things.
I don't think it's ultimately helpful to pretend that everything is new and transformative, because it simply never is.
Right.
It's always evolutionary.
But was there anything at the show literally that you saw and went, oh, I like that, or I have to have that in my house? Like, do you have any wearables? Are you interested in wearables at all?
I'm interested in the Apple Watch when it comes out, which of course wasn't at CES,
Right.
because they've already thought through how it integrates with their other products.
Right. So you like that whole ecosystem approach. What about any of the wearables that, I saw so many that were so niche, and I
Right.
thought that was interesting. Like a yoga mat. Like, who cares about a yoga mat unless you're a yoga freak? You might actually really dig a connected yoga mat.
I can't help but think of the complexities of these problems. You touched on privacy earlier. That's a huge one. We're unquestionably going to have a giant privacy meltdown at some point soon.
I don't think there is anything such as privacy. Like a friend of mine posted on Facebook, don't ever use public Wi-Fis anymore. Don't use the GPS and the mapping, and let things know where you are, and shut off all of that on every app you have. And I was like, I would rather have my identity stolen than be afraid to participate in what's happening.
Well,
poo.
But I'm
not inviting that, by the way.
This is really
Poo.
This is the other thing, that social media and the exaggerated outrage we see about every new development. Just yesterday's Oscar nominations and the immediate outrage about the racial balance.
Yeah.
That's a legitimate conversation about show business.
Yes.
But you have to really understand how voting takes place at the Academy in order to have an intelligent conversation
right.
about that.
Like the big secret is that a lot of people don't vote.
Well, there's lots of that.
Yeah.
And on and on. But be that as it may, the outrage became the headline, and then everybody else reported about the outrage.
Right, because
do we
they have
know
nothing...
how many people were actually outraged? No, we actually don't. But let's talk about the outrage.
Right. Well, so you're just commenting in general about
this
news cycles work.
This affects tech reporting.
Right.
When everything is the latest, greatest, or the worst.
So people want eyeballs, and so they're going to the most emotional thing they can talk about.
And they're making these
trend
announcements. These announcements and pronouncements
Yeah.
that are way premature, that you can't possibly know what you're talking about.
Right. So if in your ideal world you would like people to, again, speak realistically about where things are at, even if they're trying to sell something, sell it real.
Even if they just, somewhere down in paragraph 3 mention the possible downside or what we don't know. Then there are responsible journalists who do that.
Could we call it the Greenwald effect?
No. No.
Why
Unless,
not?
of course, I get a royalty.
That's right.
I
think that would be so cool. What about, where do you, Arthur Greenwald, because you do know a lot about a lot of things in this space, and you always know the latest thing, and I know whenever I talk to you, like in the middle of the day or something, you're like, did you read? And I'm like, no, I don't know half of what you know. So what is it that you're reading? What are the journals, the periodicals, the things that keep you in the loop?
Well, I read a lot of the traditional trades, often online, much more often online.
So which ones now?
Variety, broadcasting and cable, TV News Check, and News Check Media in general, because I enjoy the keeping track of the local TV stations, which is still an interesting area, even though they certainly face their challenges. And Variety, Hollywood Reporter, and The Wrap.
Okay.
Deadline, I generally see through Variety since they're now one company.
Okay.
But yes. But also, Tim and Ben Baharan's, I'll have to look it up for you. I'll tell you in a minute. But they do a tremendous technology review that I subscribe to.
Oh, I would love to hear what the name of.
I would, these are people, by the way, are really useful as Facebook friends.
Because they're posting, they're curating.
Yes, Bajarin. Tim writes for Time magazine as well as PC Week and others.
And he has his own newsletter?
And he has his own newsletter, and their work is just terrific. But people like Rob Tursek, I love to spar with Rob because we disagree with, about a lot of things.
He makes huge, grand
That's
statements.
Right. He drives me insane
about crazy stuff.
But at the same time, he's one of the most eclectic and thoughtful readers, and he's just such a great person to have as a
Curate,
Facebook
because he
friend.
curates.
He's a tremendous curator.
And he's a big public speaker, but he's always speaking about stuff that's crazy land.
Well,
But it's good. I mean, that's his brand.
I love arguing with him,
Yeah.
but I got to tell you
Yeah.
that there are things that he discovers that I would never have encountered in my life unless he posted it on Facebook.
And what is he doing to find that? Like I'm always asking folks, where do you find the groovy? Where do you find the groovy, really cool stuff?
I assume he's lives in a monastery and they bring it to him.
Do you read some of the more traditional digital things now, like Mashable and TechCrunch? And
I do look at TechCrunch, less so for that same clickbait problem.
Right.
So much of what they say is nonsense.
Or Wired Magazine.
Yeah, Wired is thoughtful, but again, they tend to leap to conclusions a little bit. They have to sell magazines, but some great think pieces there. But also the coverage more and more in the Wall Street Journal, the Boston Globe, and the New York Times, and the Washington Post are really thoughtful.
So the tech sections of those major periodicals.
They have hired a lot of the tech writers. Someone like Molly Wood, who started out with CNET, is now reviewing for the New York Times.
So that's a great tidbit for our crowd, is to start to go back to the traditional periodicals in the technology sections, because now those writers have come from what were the early tech reporting. Because I read some stuff on CNET and watched some CNET videos, and I was like, this could have been high school.
Well, Brian Cooley is one of the head guys there, is always thought-provoking.
Yeah.
But the second string team is not as good as it used to be in my view.
I just found it was very junior content.
Yeah, dispersed.
Yeah, maybe it's just too thin there right now. But I do read the New York Times and Wall Street Journal a lot in terms of the technology reporting. So that's a great tip.
And I think another thing to watch out for is, and this is a little harder, kind of inside baseball for the tech reporting, but wherever you can, try to find out who these people consult with and are paid by. I don't want to name names, but we can both quote examples of friends of ours who we like, who are very enthusiastic about new products, but they're also on the payroll of these companies.
So you want to be careful about
and there's just the disclosure rules are very loose for the consultant world. They're not like...
So says the curmudgeon.
Well, it's like the Recode and the Wall Street Journal. Kara Swisher has and
on the payroll.
Walt Mossberg, by the way, Recode is a great thing to read. They have disclaimers that are about 2 miles long, disclosing every investment they ever had.
Right, because they're on the payroll of a lot of different companies consulting. So
actually, they take pains not to be, but they're very clear about speaking
fees
and everything else.
Right, they write about
what
they
ethical.
Let you know where they are. So we have to wrap it up, but I wanted to just go back to what are you doing next, so that maybe our audience can find you.
Well,
where do curmudgeons go for a good time?
I'll tell you one thing I'm doing more of, and I'm producing more live events, and hopefully have some announcements about that soon.
Good, great.
Just came from there. But I'm also trying to do much more with the nonprofit world.
Okay.
And it's really where I started, if you think, with Mr. Rogers and public television.
Nice circle, nice tying it together at the end.
We hear a lot of overgeneralizations about net neutrality and the Communications Act and how backward it is. But there are a lot of things that the Communications Act really got right. And that is the public service obligation in exchange for bandwidth, essentially, radio frequencies at the time, and the fact that all local stations were obliged to do something to serve their public and their audience. And you can't make that into a law today, certainly, but it really should be a tradition of those of us who work in media.
And you're helping some of the local stations get there?
Well, yes, but also I'm helping nonprofits reach out to media experts, which is what I want to talk to you about right after the show.
All right, and ladies and gentlemen, that's a great note to end on. So fabulous time. We're definitely going to bring Arthur back. Arthur, again, is one of the reasons why I started doing this, because we just started chatting about how much fun it would be to chat.
And next time there will be baked goods.
And there will be baked goods next time. So ladies and gentlemen, Lori Short's here with Tech Trends Impacting Your Business. Let's have a hand for the fabulous Arthur Greenwald of Greenwald Media, our favorite and only digital curmudgeon. You've got to have this guy around to land the plane. Oh, the ladies are throwing their underwear.
Oh my God!
Oh my
is
God.
that what that is?
See you all in a week or so.
I thought they were hostage blindfolds.
Woo!
Shows that make you laugh. Shows that make you think. Music that moves you. It could only be one place. Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.
Now that you've found UBN Radio and discovered our quality talk shows, it's time to spread the word to friends, family, and the universe. 24 hours of music and talk. Radio without limits. That's why people keep coming back for more. That's ubnradio.com.